Welcome to the True Crime Never Sleeps podcast. I'm your host, Larry Elise. And on today's episode, we're diving into the life and crimes of Bugsy Siegel, the Las Vegas Tycoon. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Poddex. Poddex for sponsoring this episode. If you're a podcaster looking to grow your audience and get more engagement, come check out Poddex, poddex.com, and use the promo code Larry21 for 10% off your order. And of course, we'd also like to thank Audible. If you want to get a free audiobook of your choice with no purchase necessary, head on over to audibletrial.com/Larry21. And hey, if you want to be a part of the show, you can send us a voicemail at 682-305-0483. Let us know your thoughts on the criminals and cases we cover. Is there something we missed, something we got wrong, or you just have a comment on the show or how we should improve it? Let us know. Just leave us a voicemail. Number again, 682-305-0483. And now on to today's topic, Bugsy Siegel. Bugsy Siegel was an American mobster who was a driving force behind the development of the Las Vegas Strip. Siegel was not only influential within the Jewish mob, but along with his childhood friend and fellow gangster, Meyer Lansky, also held significant influence within the Italian-American Mafia and the largely Italian-Jewish National Crime Syndicate. He was described as handsome and charismatic. He became one of the first front-page celebrity gangsters. Siegel was one of the founders and leaders of Murder, Inc. and became a bootlegger during Prohibition. After the 21st Amendment was passed repealing Prohibition in 1933, he turned to gambling. In 1936, he left New York and moved to California. His time as a mobster during this period was mainly as a hitman and muscle, as he was noted for his prowess with guns and violence. In 1941, Siegel was tried for the murder of friend and fellow mobster Harry Greenberg, who had turned informant. Shockingly, he was acquitted in 1942. Siegel traveled to Las Vegas, Nevada, where he handled and financed some of the original casinos. He assisted developer William Wilkerson's Flamingo Hotel. After Wilkerson ran out of funds, Siegel assumed control of the project and managed the final stages of construction. The Flamingo opened day after Christmas in 1946. In a driving rainstorm resulting in poor reception and technical difficulties, and soon closed. It reopened in March 1947 with a finished hotel. By then, his mob partners were convinced an estimated $1 million of the construction budget overage had been skimmed by either girlfriend Virginia Hill, Siegel, or both. On June 20th, 1947, Siegel was shot dead by a sniper through the window of Hill's Linden Drive mansion in Beverly Hills, California. Benjamin Siegel, like we said, was born on February 28th, 1906, in the Williamsburg neighborhood of Brooklyn in New York City, New York. The second of 5 children of a poor Jewish family that emigrated to the U.S. from the Austria-Hungary area. His parents, Jenny and Max Siegel, constantly worked for meager wages. As a boy, Siegel left school and joined a gang on Lafayette Street on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. He committed mainly thefts until he met Mo Sedway. Together, he developed a protection racket in which he threatened to incinerate pushcart owners' merchandise unless they paid him $1. He soon built up a lengthy criminal record dating from his teenage years that included armed robbery, rape, and murder. During adolescence, Siegel befriended Meyer Lansky, which we previously mentioned, who applied a brilliant intellect to forming a small mob whose activities expanded to gambling and car theft. Lansky, who had already had a run-in with Charles Lucky Luciano, saw a need for the Jewish boys of his Brooklyn neighborhood to organize in the same manner as the Italians and Irish. The first person he recruited for his gang was Siegel. He became involved in bootlegging within several major East Coast cities. He also worked as the mob's hitman, whom Lansky hired out to other crime families. The two formed the Bugs and Meyer mob, which handled hits for the various bootleg gangs operating in New York and New Jersey, doing so almost a decade before Murder, Inc. was formed. The gang kept themselves busy by hijacking the liquor cargoes of rival outfits and were known to be responsible for the killing and removal of several rival gangland figures. Siegel's gang mates included Abner Olongi Zillman, Louis Buckhalter, and Lansky's brother Jake. Joseph Doc Stotcher, another member of the Bugs and Meyer mob, recalled to Lansky biographers that Siegel was fearless and saved his friends' lives as the mob moved into bootlegging. Siegel was also a boyhood friend to Al Capone. When there was a warrant for Capone's arrest on a murder charge, Siegel allowed him to hide out with an aunt. He first smoked opium during his youth and was involved in the drug trade. By age 21, he was making money and flaunted it. He bought an apartment at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel and a Tudor home in Scarsdale, New York. He wore flashy clothes and participated in New York City nightlife. On January 28, 1929, Siegel married Esta Krakauer, his childhood sweetheart. They had two daughters, Millicent Siegel and Barbara Siegel. He had a reputation as a womanizer, and the marriage ended in 1946. His wife moved with their teenage daughters to New York. By late 1920s, Lansky and Siegel had ties to Luciano and Frank Costello, future bosses of the Genovese crime family. Siegel, Anastasia, Genovese, and Joe Adonis allegedly were the four gunmen who shot New York mob boss Joe Masseria to death on Luciano's orders on April 15th, 1931. On September 10th of that year, Luciano hired four gunmen from the Bugs and Meyer mob to murder Salvatore Maranzano in his New York office, establishing Luciano's rise to the top of the mafia and marking the beginning of modern American organized crime. Following Maranzano's death, Luciano and Lansky formed the National Crime Syndicate, an organization of crime families that brought power to the underworld. The commission was established for dividing mafia territories and preventing future gang wars. With his associates, Siegel formed Murder Inc. After he and Lansky moved on, control over Murder Inc. was ceded to Buckhalter and Anastasia. Although Siegel continued working as a hitman, Siegel's only conviction was in Miami on February 28, 1932. He was arrested for gambling and vagrancy, and from a roll of bills paid a $100 fine. During this period, Siegel had a disagreement with the Fabrizio brothers, associates of Waxy Gordon. Gordon had hired the brothers from prison after Lansky and Siegel gave the IRS information about Gordon's tax evasion. That led to Gordon's imprisonment in 1933. Siegel hunted down and killed the brothers after they made an assassination attempt on him and Lansky, penetrating Siegel's heavily fortified Waldorf Astoria suite with a bomb. After the deaths of his two brothers, Tony had begun to write a memoir and gave it to an attorney. One of the longest chapters was to be a section on the nationwide kill for hire squad led by Siegel. However, the mob discovered Fabrizio's plans before he could execute them. After checking into a hospital to establish an alibi and later sneaking out, Siegel joined two accomplices approaching Fabrizio's house and posing as detectives to lure him outside, in which they gunned him down. In Hollywood, Siegel was welcomed in the highest circles and befriended movie stars. He was known to associate with George Raft, Clark Gable, Gary Cooper, and Cary Grant, as well as studio executives Louis Mayer, Jack Warner. Actress Jean Harlow was a friend of Siegel and godmother to his daughter Millicent. Siegel bought real estate and threw lavish parties at his Beverly Hills home. He gained admiration from young celebrities including Tony Curtis, Phil Silvers, and Frank Sinatra. Siegel had several relationships with prominent women, including socialite Countess Dorothy de Frasso. The alliance with the Countess took Siegel to Italy in 1938, where he met Benito Mussolini, to whom Siegel tried to sell weapons. Siegel also met Nazi leaders Hermann Göring and Joseph Goebbels, to whom he took an instant dislike and later offered to kill. He only relented because of the Countess's anxious pleas. In Hollywood, Siegel worked with the syndicate to form illegal rackets. He devised a plan of extorting movie studios. He would take over local trade unions and stage strikes to force studios to pay him off so that unions would start working again. Siegel borrowed money from celebrities and did not pay them back, knowing that they would never ask him for the money. During his first year in Hollywood, he received over $400,000 in loans from movie stars. On November 22nd, 1939, Siegel, Whitey Croker, Frankie Carbo, and Albert Tannenbaum killed Harry Big Greeny outside his apartment. Greenberg had threatened to become a police informant, and Buckhalter ordered his killing. Tannenbaum confessed to the murder and agreed to testify against Siegel. Siegel was implicated in the murder, and in September 1941 was put on trial. The trial soon gained notoriety because of the preferential treatment Siegel received in jail. He refused to eat prison food, was allowed female visitors, and was granted leave for dental visits. Siegel hired attorney Jerry Giesler for his defense. After the death of 2 state witnesses, no additional witnesses came forward. Tannenbaum's testimony was dismissed. In 1942, Siegel was acquitted because of insufficient evidence, but his reputation was damaged. During the trial, newspapers revealed Siegel's past and referenced him as Bugsy's. Siegel hated that nickname. On May 25th, Siegel was arrested for bookmaking. Raft and Mac Gray testified on Siegel's behalf, and in late 1944, Siegel was acquitted again. And now let us head on over to Las Vegas. In 1946, Siegel found an opportunity to reinvent his personal image and diversify into legitimate business with William Wilkerson's Flamingo Hotel. In the late 30s, Siegel had traveled to southern Nevada with Sedway to explore expanding operations there. He had found opportunities to provide illicit services to crews constructing the Boulder Dam. Lansky had handed over operations in Nevada to Siegel, who turned it over to Sedway and left for Hollywood. In the mid-1940s, Siegel was lining things up in Vegas, while his lieutenants worked on a business policy to secure all gambling in Los Angeles. In May 1946, he decided that the agreement with Wilkerson had to be altered to give him control of the Flamingo. With the Flamingo, Siegel would supply the gambling, the best liquor and food, and the biggest entertainers at reasonable prices. He believed these attractions would lure not only the high rollers, but thousands of vacationers willing to gamble $50 or $100. Wilkerson was eventually coerced into selling all stakes in the Flamingo under the threat of death, and went into hiding in Paris for a time. From this point, the Flamingo became syndicate run. Siegel began a spending spree. He demanded the finest building that money could buy at a time of post-war shortages. As cars soared, his checks began bouncing. By October 1946, the Flamingo's costs were above $4 million. By 1947, the costs were over $6 million. By late November of that year, the work was nearly finished. According to later reports by local observers, Siegel's chest puffing set the pattern for several generations of notable casino moguls. His violent reputation did not help his situation. After he boasted one day that he had personally killed some men, Siegel saw the panicked look on the face of head contractor Del Webb and reassured him, "Del, don't worry, we only kill each other." Other associates portrayed Siegel in a different aspect. He was an intense character who was not without a charitable side. On the night of June 20th, 1947, as Siegel sat with his associate Alan Smiley in Virginia Hill's Beverly Hills home reading the LA Times, an unknown assailant fired at him through the window with a .30 caliber military M1 carbine, hitting him many times, including twice in the head. Some looked upon it as a cowardly approach, bushwhacking the formidable and weapons-proficient Siegel from a distance. No one was charged with killing Siegel, and the crime remains unsolved. One theory is that Siegel's death was due to excessive spending and possible theft of money from the mob. In 1946, a meeting was held with the board of directors of the syndicate in Havana, Cuba, so that Luciano, exiled in Sicily, could attend and participate. A contract on Siegel's life was the conclusion. According to Stature and Lansky, reluctantly agreed to the decision. Another theory is that Siegel was shot to death preemptively by Matthew Panza, the lover of Sedway's wife, B, who went to Panza after learning that Siegel was threatening to kill her husband. Siegel apparently had grown increasingly resentful of the control Sedway, at mob behest, was exerting over Siegel's finances and planned to do away with him. Former Philadelphia family boss Ralph Natalie claimed that Carbo was responsible for murdering Siegel at the behest of Lansky. Siegel's death certificate states that the cause of death as homicide and the immediate cause as cerebral hemorrhage due to gunshot wounds to the head. Siegel was hit by several other bullets, including shots through his lungs. The day after Siegel's death, the LA Herald Express carried a photograph on its front page from the morgue of Siegel's bare right foot with a toe tag. Although Siegel's murder occurred in Beverly Hills, his death thrust Las Vegas into the national spotlight, as photographs of his lifeless body were published in newspapers throughout the country. The day after Siegel's murder, David Berman and his Las Vegas mob associates Sedway and Gus Greenbaum walked into the Flamingo and took over operation of the hotel and casino. Let us know your thoughts on Bugsy Siegel in the comments section below. Is there something we missed, something we should included? Let us know in the comments. And hey, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button to be notified of future videos. And if you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TCNS. Your support helps the channel grow, upgrade our equipment, bring in new hosts, pay them, and hopefully someday soon take this show on the road. We'd really love to live stream episodes from true crime scenes such as Dealey Plaza, the murder of Bugsy Siegel, for example, or the Zodiac Killer. And your support can help make that happen. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/TCNS. You can give us $1, $2, $5, whatever you want. As always, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for listening and watching, and we will see you next time.